another episode of The Private Record. This is Matt D'Elia, and we got a really, really good story for you today. I loved talking to this guest. She's super charming, super sweet, and honestly, what she has to say is extremely interesting. It kind of like, and you can see this in the episode. I'm curious if you guys can flag it in the comments, because I know you guys like to point out when I'm like kind of on the fritz, but she kind of cracked my head open with a few things she said, her perspective. She, when she was a baby, her and her twin sister were adopted. And all her life, she was very curious about her birth mother. Her adoptive parents sounded like amazing people and always let her know that she was adopted, that her mother really did love her, but just couldn't, she goes on to tell the whole story. But she always had it in her mind, very as many adopted children do, what was my mom like? And she has this absolutely unbelievably unlikely run-in with her birth mother at maybe the most unlikely of places. But she goes on to tell the story. I don't really want to ruin it, but it's very interesting because her whole life, I don't believe in like fate and signs and this and that. But if I were to, this would be one story that I would kind of use as evidence because she's just really, really sort of not obsessed, but very, very, very fascinated with her birth mother, who she never got to meet. And in the events leading up to the run-in that she has with her, there are like these weird signs swirling around. It's just a really cool, sweet story. And it kind of honestly opened my mind up a bit. And that's not always something that I can say at my ripe old age these days. When something really, truly opens my mind. Anyway, it's a great story. I hope you like it. Amy is a great guest. Let us know what you think in the comments. If you want to be a guest on the show, go to theprivaterecord.com and submit yourself to be a potential guest on the show. Obviously, follow us on all socials, Instagram, TikTok, at The Private Record. And please, please, please subscribe to our YouTube channel at The Private Record. You can find us there. Like and comment on this video. And if you really, really love me, and if you really, really love the show, share it with your friends. That would be great. It means the world to me that you watch the show, that you listen to the show. And I just want to let you know, I really, really, really appreciate you, actual you, the guy, the girl, the person, the adult you're pointing at. Thank you. Love you. Enjoy the show. Welcome to The Private Record. Amy, is it Amy or Amy-Leigh? What do we go by?
You can do Amy, it's fine.
Okay, Amy, welcome to the show. Happy to have you. I know a little bit about your story, but I'm very excited to hear the whole thing. It sounds extremely interesting. And yeah, if you want to just give us, you can introduce yourself and give us sort of like the headline or the genre. Yeah, the brief one. Don't give anything great away though, if you don't mind. Yeah.
No, totally. Yeah. I will say this is the story of spotting my biological mother at a Giants game.
That's very, 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 that makes people's ears perk up. So let's get right into it then. Yes, start as far back as you want, because I think the background will be very interesting as well.
Yeah, no, the background is a little bit important. So I'm a twin, first of all. So there's another one of me.
Like identical, or is it fraternal? Identical and fraternal?
Fraternal.
Okay.
Yeah, you might see like two beds in the background. This is our childhood home.
Whoa.
We always shared a room.
Very cool.
Yeah,
okay,
we're in the basement.
Yeah. Got it.
And the reason why we're in the basement is not because we're like abducted or anything. It's because we have 3 other siblings. So I'm one of 5.
Okay.
And the cool thing about that is we all joined my family through adoption.
Wow.
Yeah. So my parents, they tried to have children naturally, didn't really work out. So they, went the adoption route, and, they were really excited to, potentially get a baby and start a family. And after like, a long time of like waiting and, things falling through, my parents got a call. They're like, from the adoption agency, they're like, we have a situation. And they're like, you need to come in. So they came in and they're like, okay, there's a baby, but there's 2 of them.
There's a baby, but there's actually 2 babies. Yeah.
Right. And my mom's like, we like 2 noses, 2 like what, 2 of what?
Yeah.
And they're like 2 babies. And those twins So my birth mom uh got pregnant.
Mhm.
Didn't know, I don't, from what I know, she didn't really, realize she was pregnant until pretty late. And
Mm.
she wasn't, from what I know, I don't think she was like in the best
Mhm.
circumstances, definitely not in a position to like bring one child, let alone two, into
Mhm.
the world. So she went the adoption route through Catholic Charities in New Jersey.
Mm.
And that's the agency my parents were going through. So we, at that time when we were eligible for adoption, we had been in foster care for about 11 months.
Mhm.
My parents who adopted us, they were like, no, let's do it. And the joke, like the wild thing is like they only had a weekend to prepare for twins to come home.
Wow. Wow,
Yeah, it's
wow,
like
wow.
one of those things that you like, most people have like 9 months.
And even that's not enough usually, because anybody I know with
Right,
twins is like, "Ah," for at least the first 3 or
right.
4 years. Yeah.
Right, and this was, like, before Amazon. This was, like, you
Yeah.
had to
Yeah, yeah,
find
yeah.
cribs, everything in stock
Right,
that
right.
weekend. It was, like, Memorial Day weekend
Oh
too,
my
so
goodness. Okay.
yeah. So, anyway, we joined the fam. It's great. My parents never, it was, the adoption was, like, we met at the adoption agency. My birth mom wasn't involved,
Mm.
um, so that's the start of our
Mhm.
family. And then, my parents adopted their my sister Grace, and then after that adopted a brother. And the reason why, like, the birth moms, they would put in their, when they're placing a kid for adoption, they're
Mhm.
like, I want a big family.
Wow. So you
I
can
want
actually
to make sure they have
recommend or suggest, like, what your preference
exactly.
is. Oh, I didn't know that.
Right.
That's
I know.
interesting.
It's like a whole different world that you don't think about.
Yeah.
So we were like, my parents like had put like to have sorry, hold on.
It's alright. And
Like sibling.
were you the first 2, you and your twin were the first 2 in the family?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So, like what's another?
Yeah,
What's another two?
after twins, yeah, what's another 2, 3, who cares? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So so they wanted, a big family. So they're like, perfect, this family is awesome. They already have, three girls, a boy.
Mhm.
And we actually ended up, years later, so there was four of us, we actually became a foster family for the adoption agency that we were all adopted through. So we would get like, newborn 2-day old babies, take care of them while their birth moms were trying to decide,
Oh, wow.
what to do. So we'd have maybe a baby from like for 2 days or 2 months. And eventually we had a foster baby for almost 2 years. And by the time she was eligible for adoption, because like, the birth families
Mm.
and, parental stuff and
Mhm.
courts, the birth family was like, we want you guys to keep her. So
Wow.
we were like, okay, my parents like had to decide. And there's about, between me and the youngest, there's a 15-year age gap.
Whoa.
So yeah, so it was essentially like they were starting over.
Yeah.
So
But they had
the
had the 5th your 5th sibling for 2 years already?
Yeah, as a foster
I
baby.
mean, so basically, I'm sure
She was
they felt like it was their child, you know?
exact
Yeah,
yeah,
okay, yeah.
it was awesome. I was a senior in high school. I remember going to the courthouse and like, it was so cool because none of us remember our adoption ceremony or
Right, of
anything.
course,
So it's
yeah.
cool to see that.
Yeah.
Um, so we stopped fostering after that because there's literally no more room at the end. Like me and my sister had to move to the
Yeah,
basement.
yeah,
Um, so anyway, so that's kind of like
yeah.
the foundation of our family.
Mhm.
And um myself and my siblings, we always knew we were adopted from, from as soon as we could even remember. Like,
Mm.
it wasn't like there was that moment where you were sat down and
Right.
said, well, you're adopted. And the story was like, you were in your birth mom's tummy and she
Mhm.
she wasn't ready to be a mom, and she loved you so much that like she wanted, to give you to a family who would be able to take care of you. So
I mean, that's a
we
good
knew like
story. That's a good story to be
yeah,
told as a kid. I mean, I feel like for someone who has no experience with adoption, I've thought about it a weird amount. And I'm so interested in that, what you just said, that early or first conversation that a parent has, because you have to make that decision as a parent. Do you want to wait to tell them so that they might be of age to understand, which
yeah,
sounds complicated because it's such a moving target. For some kids, you
yeah,
might be 5, some kids, you might be 9. And but it makes so much more sense to do what your parents did, which is just like, we're going to let them know from step
yeah,
one. We're not going to hide it. We're just going to say it. But, and even at that, that sounds like a great way to hear it, the way you described your
yeah.
parents telling you.
Like really, it was really organic.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like I don't know what training manuals they read. I just think they had good instinct. Like,
Yeah.
um, so the one thing about like adoption is like sometimes you have open adoption where there is contact with the birth
Mm.
families, moving forward with the adopted families. And then a lot of times they're closed adoptions where there's, basically the record is sealed, there's no contact, no follow-up. And for my siblings, my younger siblings, um, who all had different birth moms, like it wasn't like it was the same birth mom.
Yeah.
Um, we actually had open adoption. So there was like follow-up. We had met their birth families. Like even to this day, we'll, see them on holidays.
Mm.
So it was really cool because, you know, uh, you have like this extended family.
Yeah. Yeah. That is cool. Yeah.
Um, yeah. So that was always cool. But my twin and I, we never met our birth mom.
Hmm.
And that was always like, kind of like I think when you're explained that there's this like you had a birth mom and she loved you so much and but she couldn't take care of you. It's almost like this like fairy godmother sort of thing.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Like who is she?
Hmm.
Like what does she look like? And we found out like a little bit. I'll like use like a pseudonym,
Hmm.
for her
Sure.
name.
Yeah.
I'll say Lee, right? Because half of my name is Lee. So
Sure.
I'll say Lee is my birth mom. Um, and we knew like her name and we knew there were, just kind of the circumstances. She wasn't
Hmm.
ready.
Hmm.
And I think like there was like, she was going through a hard time.
Hmm.
But what we did, like my parents, like, had, if we wanted to, like write letters,
Mm.
and maybe it'll be sent to the adoption agency and maybe the adoption agency will like get it to her.
Mm.
And yeah, like I always remember, writing, I think I found some writings like, hi Lee, like I wonder what you look like. I would
Aw.
love to meet you like right soon. So it was always this like kind of like mystical thing. And like there was never really like much, it wasn't like resentful, like it wasn't
Mm.
like, oh, she doesn't like want us, like, maybe therapy, like maybe there's like under,
Yeah, you never know.
deeper
So
deeper issues.
at no
Yeah.
point then were you ever like angry about this or I mean,
It
obviously
was yeah.
different degrees of upset, but like the resentment, to hear you say there was none is so fascinating to me. And that again sort of points to your adoptive parents doing something right in that case,
Yeah.
because it doesn't seem like you'd naturally be resentful, but there certainly is the room for that if
Right.
handled incorrectly, you know?
Right, because, what some of the things, like, I learned from, uh, I myself I'm actually a therapist, and
Mm.
some of the stuff I learned about, adoption and all of that is, like, there's like, on a cellular level,
Mm.
like, there's, like, a wound, there's trauma
Mm.
because, think you're, like, with, this person growing inside this person for 9 months and you
Mhm.
hear their voice and just everything, you're so connected, and then to be removed from that
Mhm.
person and never really to be seen again, there's, like, an inherent, like, they call it the primal wound,
Mm.
and it leads to feelings of, studies have shown, like, that adopted children, even if they don't know they're adopted, they have a sense of, like, something is missing,
Mm.
I feel different, there's a whole, like, level of things, and it could and it doesn't even matter if the kid was adopted at age 5 or
Wow.
5 hours old. You
Interesting.
know,
Very
it's
interesting. Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah.
So I think like there wasn't that outright like
Sure.
resentment or, pain, but I think like there was always that like maybe underlying like, oh, well, why didn't she want us?
Yes.
You
Right.
know?
Okay. Yes. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You know, but then the answer to that from my parents was like, no, like she wanted you so bad, but
Right.
she couldn't.
Right. And
So this was like the next option.
what's interesting about that is that is when you're an adult, you can hear that and think that is absolutely possible and therefore might well be true. But I think as a kid, that's a complicated adult thing almost. Loving something so
Yeah.
much, but knowing you're not the best person, and the fact that you do know that and that you love this child so much, that is what makes you let someone else raise it. That is harder to understand as a child, but I'm
Yeah.
sure as an adult, anyone could understand, but
Yeah.
that's not the issue. You got to explain it to a kid. But yeah, it's all so
Right.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like the other piece of like knowing my siblings' birth parents and like seeing,
Hmm.
getting to put a face to their,
Yeah.
history and like
Yeah.
it was I don't know, it just made it make more sense,
Right.
like
Right.
they're real people and like
Totally.
they
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
So it's a very unique
Hmm.
situation. And one of the things like my mom would say, uh she would say, I realized something, like, even though you and my twin sister Heather, even though you and Heather never met Lee, like your biological mother, you have your birth family. You
Mm.
two, like
Mm.
you two are
Yes.
biological. Like
Yes.
you're each other's birth families, and that's something you know, if I was just me, like I wouldn't have
That's
my birth
true.
family or
Yeah. That's
whatever. And I was
actually
like,
very true. Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
I was like, that's wow, like that's such a perspective
Hmm.
shift.
Yeah.
So anyway, like, I've kind of always had that like narrative of like, I have a birth mom out
Hmm.
there somewhere. And, when I kind of became a teenager and into high school, you know, that curiosity kind of increased. We never got responses from the letters.
Mm.
I should add though, my parents actually did get to meet my birth mom, when we were very, very young.
Hmm.
We weren't there.
Hmm.
I guess like it was maybe we were trying to do a reunion,
Mm.
and they met. So like we had pictures of her and my
Oh,
parents, and
okay.
she had blonde hair and like really blue eyes, and it was cool to see. And we were like, so when are we going to meet
Hmm.
her? And unfortunately, like it never, came to fruition. So again, there was always that hope,
Hmm.
like maybe. So, you know, as a, teenager going into college and stuff, Google and Facebook,
Yeah.
you start to, I did know, I think I knew like I guess from my birth certificate, I knew her last name
Mm.
because it wasn't like totally sealed.
Hmm.
Um, so I started like Googling and searching, and I found a couple profiles that sort of fit the picture, and I finally did find a Facebook account.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa, like it felt weird. It felt like I wasn't supposed to
I
be
was gonna
doing this.
say, did it feel like you were sort of seeing something private that you weren't supposed to be looking at? But I mean, that makes total
Yeah,
sense. Yeah, totally.
right. Yeah, and it was such a complicated feeling because I'm like, no, like I'm her child,
Right, right, right.
but like, but I, kind of deserve to know or want to know, but
Yeah.
at the same time, it felt like, well, she doesn't want to be found.
Right.
So it's very complicated because it was like, people like make different names on Facebook,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
you just had to put two and two together. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
you
living
know,
living now adds such a weird layer to the whole adoption thing because, like you're pointing
yeah,
out, it's so easy to find anybody with any name with one quick Google search. You know what I mean?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And 23andMe,
Right.
like
That
that
too.
stuff.
Yeah. That has. I mean, you hear stories about that. People being connected that had no interest in being connected, just through the fact that they wanted to know where they were from
Yeah.
originally. You know? Yeah.
Yeah. They're
Totally.
like, I have a
I
sister?
know.
Like,
I know. I have a sister. You're not my dad. What's going on here? Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's crazy. So anyway, um, I'm kind of just sitting on this information.
Yeah.
And, like you said, like you hear people, finding their birth families through the internet
Hmm.
and reunions. And there were some shows about it.
Yeah.
And I always was like, okay, do I do it?
Hmm.
Does my twin want to do it? Like,
Hmm.
do we have to do it together? Like it's, because what if I wanted to meet her and she didn't,
Yeah.
you know?
Totally. Yeah.
So, so a lot of therapy and, um, like college came and like it kind of fell by the wayside, but it
Hmm.
was always on my mind.
Hmm.
And in 20, I guess 2022 or one, I forget. It was a couple years ago.
Hmm.
I think it was 21. I we have my family, we have Giants season tickets.
Hmm.
Giant football.
Hmm.
Are you from New Jersey?
I'm originally from New Jersey. I could hear in your voice before you even mentioned New Jersey. I was like, she's
Oh
from Jersey.
God.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
no. I thought I was subtle.
It is subtle,
Um,
but my mom and her sister both have thick, thick accents, so I could spot it from a
yeah.
mile away, even just a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah.
Where in Jersey?
I'm from Montclair. That's where I was born.
Yeah.
My mom is from Newark, though. So yeah. What about
Yeah, that's
where are you? You don't have to say, but what area are you?
like Bergen
Oh
County,
yeah.
so
Okay. Yeah.
like 25 minutes from Montclair.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
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 So big football fans, big Giants fans. So we've had these seats for years, like, you know, even when the old stadium was there, we had seats
Uh
and,
huh.
for years. So, we would go and, but as we got older, sports came up and, it was always like, all right, who's going to use the seats? We're not going
Hmm.
to waste this money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so it was like November, it was the end of the season. And I was like, like I haven't made it to a game.
Hmm.
Let's, let me get, a couple of my friends to go. My
Hmm.
boyfriend, my best friend, Mackenzie, her boyfriend, and two of our other friends.
Hmm.
So we were gonna go to that. And this is where like it got a little weird. Well, I guess like so maybe a week before,
Hmm.
my one of my colleagues was like, "Hey, I'm doing a medium reading."
Mm.
Like the
Yep.
like yeah.
Like a
And I
psychic,
was
but not
like,
like
yeah,
not as yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. It was like one of those group readings, and
Mhm.
I've like never done it, and I was like, all right, whatever. Like, let me go. Let me see what this is all about.
Mhm.
And so we do it, and the medium is like reading people and like, you know, oh, this person, is watching over you, and like,
Mm.
people were like crying, and
Mm.
I was like, she's not gonna read me, like nothing. Like, um, and she came to me and she was like, I'm seeing, some grandmother,
Mm.
and she said something like, are you adopted?
Oh, wow.
And I was like, yeah. And like I didn't want to say too much. And like she's like, she might get like, I don't know, if I was to analyze, like maybe she was like seeing, my biological grandmother who passed, who's like, she said she was watching over me, because my adoptive grandparents, like most are still alive,
Mm.
um, luckily. So I was like, okay, weird. And then she said something like, they're closer than you think. And I was
Wow.
like, okay, okay. Like again, like hindsight, I'm like, whoa, but now I'm
Right.
just like, okay,
At the
whatever.
time, what are you even talking like, what does that even mean, really? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Like there's so many, like people say so much stuff about like adoption and stuff. I'm like, I whatever. Um, I'm like jaded to it.
Right, yeah.
But I have like like it's like what if they're just around,
Mhm. Yeah.
And going back to me finding Lee on Facebook was, I knew she was from the area,
Mhm.
from the
Mhm.
New York metropolitan area.
Mhm.
I don't know exactly where, but some of the pictures on the Facebook were at Giants games. So any of the times like I would be at a Giants game, like
Mm.
the thought would cross my mind. I'm like, "Ooh, I wonder if she's here in this like stadium of 90,000 people." And,
Yeah,
and then I
how
would just
weird. What a weird
I
feeling
was
too, just like so many people, but knowing the person you've always wanted to
Me,
meet
yeah.
might be there. Yeah. It's like you don't wanna
Yeah,
watch
because,
the
like,
game, you wanna look around in the stands, see if she's there. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Right, and I never did that, like, I never made it a point to, like, look around, it
Right,
just
right.
crossed my mind, and, um, it's like you go to a sports game and then you see on Instagram, like, your friends are there, and you're like, "Oh my god, they were there
Mhm,
and I was there," like, cool.
mhm.
And, so fast forward after the medium reading, get my friends together, we go to the game, and we're tailgating in the parking lot. I got my Giants gear on, the blue, red, and the blue was very blue, and I say that because, so many of my friends were coming up to me and being like, "Your eyes are so blue today." And as a blue-eyed person, like, I do get that
Yeah,
sometimes, and
yeah.
it's, like, nice, but it just, like, was, like, really, astute, significant, like, it was
It's
I don't
happening
know,
happening a lot.
it
Like
was
if
happening a lot. I was
yeah,
like,
yeah,
"Alright,
yeah.
everybody chill out,"
Right, right, right.
Like
Yeah, yeah. I get it. My eyes are
and
blue. Yeah.
but anytime, like, someone brings up my blue eyes, I think of my birth mom because
Mm.
I saw in the picture she had really big blue eyes,
Mm.
like me.
Mhm.
And so, again, like, the thought crosses my mind, think nothing of it,
Right.
but, we're also at a Giants game. "Ooh, maybe she's here."
Yeah.
And so we go in, we sit at we get seated in the same seats that we've sat in for years. Game starts, having a great time, and it's maybe, like, around, like, 2nd quarter, and I'm, just looking around, you people watch, um, and I saw like, my eye, like, was drawn to, like, how you can see the people walking up
Yeah.
the
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
steps, the
Yeah.
stadium stairs,
Yeah.
um, and I saw this woman, and I was like, "What?
Uh,
Like, what?" It was so like, even to this day, it's insane. I'm like, "I think that's my birth mom."
and how far away, like how far is
Like,
she from you at this
so
moment?
we have seats 1 through 6, so we're
Mhm.
just 6 seats in, like, I
Mhm.
was 6 seats in,
Mhm.
so really not far, like, you know, if I threw something, they'd be able to catch it, you
Oh, like
know?
right in the aisle from
Right,
6
like, so
seats
I'm
away.
6 seats in, yeah, from the
Oh,
aisle.
whoa, okay, so very close.
And then she walks up, and she's sitting maybe so on the other side and 3 rows up, so diagonal. Like,
Whoa.
all you have to do is, like, turn your head, and I, like I'm, like, in shock because I'm like,
Yeah.
"No, that is her. I know that picture. I know what she
Yeah.
looks like. I
Yeah.
know she's been to Giants." Like, all this stuff is
Yeah.
running through my head,
Wow.
and I'm like I keep looking, and I'm like at this point, I'm, like, having a panic attack, like,
Mhm.
my best friend is there, and it was so weird because recently again, like, hindsight, recently I had shown her a picture of my birth mom for the first time
Mm, whoa.
because I had been yeah, because I had been talking about it, like, what do I do? Like, maybe do I reach out? Maybe,
Mhm.
it was just a lot of, like, things were, you know, coming up. And she was like, "No, that is definitely
Mm.
her."
Yeah.
So at this point, the game is insignificant at this
Yeah, who
point.
cares? I
Like,
mean, you might as
yeah,
well not be
like,
at a game, yeah.
right. Like, I am just panicking, and, like, my boyfriend's like, what is happening right
Yeah,
now?" Like,
I guess I'm curious, like, you're with 5 other people, what is, like, the cascading effect on all of them? Some of them must be like, "What are you talking about?" Right? Like, how much do
yeah.
they all know? And then
So l
yeah.
yeah, so luckily, my boyfriend obviously knew, my best friend and her boyfriend knew, and just the other 2, like, they were good sports about it,
Caught on
like,
quick, yeah, yeah, yeah.
so now the question is, what do you do?
Mhm.
You have your biological mom that you've always imagined what it would be like to, like, see her in person, be in the same room, like,
Mhm.
energy, like, what does that feel like? Eye
Mhm.
contact,
Mhm.
because I always was like, "Is it gonna be, like, a magical moment?" You know?
Mhm. Yeah.
Like,
It's
will she just
so
know?
it's so like, what do you do? Like, truly stopping and thinking about everyone listening or watching right now, like, stop and actually think, like, what would you do in that situation? It's like a hypothetical someone would make up to get a good
Yeah,
conversation going. Do you know what I mean? Like, because it's
right.
so unlikely, so almost impossible sounding that
Mhm.
it's fun to think about things like that. But
Yeah.
this actually happened to you. So okay, so yeah.
Yeah.
What do you do? It's like
So
around halftime, you said, right? Like
yeah,
second
it's
quarter.
around
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah, so, I need to call my mom
Right. Okay.
because
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah. Right.
And, so me and Mackenzie, we run down to, like, the least allowed part of the place, which this place is insane,
Hmm.
and, I'm like, "Mom, she's here."
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Lee is here,
Hmm.
and almost like it's almost as if she, like, was
Hmm.
waiting for this moment because she's like, "Okay, so what do
Hmm.
you wanna do?" I'm like, "I don't know." And, like, this just, like, goes to show, like, from the beginning, my parents have always been, like, so good at, like, talking about this stuff,
Yeah.
handling this
Yeah.
stuff, so she's like, "Do you want to let this opportunity pass you by?" And I
Mm.
was like, "No,
Yeah. No.
I
Yeah.
don't but how?" Like, I'm not gonna go up to her because oh, and she was with her 2 kids that are essentially my half siblings.
Whoa. So she's, oh
I
my
forgot to mention
God.
that.
And how old are they at the, like, how old do they
I
look?
think, like, looked like one was, like, college, one was, like, high school.
Wow.
And the
Okay.
girl, she had, like, really blue eyes too. I was like, "That's
Wow.
my sister."
Wow. Okay. So this is like a
Um,
loaded scenario. You got to do
yeah,
the right thing, whatever that is. You don't want to just go,
yeah.
"Hey, I'm your," you know what I mean? Like, "Hey, I
Right.
made it." Yeah. "Hey, sis," like, what do you
Yeah,
do?
right.
Yeah.
Um, so, yeah, so that my mom was like, "No, you can't do that."
Hmm.
Um, I even call my therapist who, like, I don't call my therapist, like, when it's not a session,
Yeah.
and she picks up, she's like, "You gotta do something." I'm like,
Wow.
"Okay."
Yeah.
So, my mom just, like, she concocts this plan, and she's like, "Okay, so here's what you're gonna do. You're going to find a pen and a piece of paper,
Hmm.
and you're going to write a message on that piece of paper that says something along the lines of, 'Hi, like, would love to connect, if you are comfortable, like, if you want to,
Right.
like, here.'" And my mom said, "Give her my number, not your number."
Okay. Yeah.
Because maybe because they met once, like, maybe they'd be more inclined to reach out to my mom instead of me personally,
Yeah,
like,
there's also something a little
mom to mom.
safer about that in the sense of like there's sort of a firmer ground to make that initial. It's like an intermediate thing almost, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I was like, "Okay." And then she's like, "Have Mackenzie, my best friend, at the end of the game, go up to her and give her the note."
Hmm. Hmm.
And we were like, "Okay, great. Now, where do we find a piece of paper and a pen?"
Yeah, those are not things people take to NFL games. Yeah.
No, everything's in a clear bag. You're not, so now this is where it's like the crew gets involved
Yeah. Right.
because no, they're all rooting for me. I'm freaking out. And so we have my friend's boyfriend going around asking for a piece of paper and our other friend doing the same. And he's saying he's going up to people and be like, "So my friend's birth mom is here and like we need to send her a
Just a crazy
like,
person. Yeah.
we were, like, getting, like, the people in our section around us, like, I guess because they were asking, like we had people, like, invested
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
this,
Yeah. I'm sure.
and
Yeah.
and, the section we're in, like, each section has, like, a security personnel or whatever,
Hmm.
so they ended up asking her, and, like, he gave her, like, the whole story, and she's like, "No, I'll get you a pen," and, like, the piece of paper was like, I don't even know, like maybe the cardboard from one of the like mugs,
Right.
the
Right. Right.
paper
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the warmers, and we found a pen. And so like the security guard's like, "Wow, like let me know what happens."
Oh.
And so yeah, it was like really sweet. Like
Yeah.
people were really supportive. Like,
Yeah.
you know, in the snack line when, my friend was trying to get a pen, like they were like, "Whoa, like cool." And so we write the note. And at this point, like, how can you not like keep looking
I mean,
behind
yeah,
you?
I'm imagining you just craning your neck the entire time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And like it was like again, that feeling of like, am I supposed to be doing this? Like,
Yeah.
just like the whole Facebook thing, like,
Right, right.
it feels weird, like, I feel like I'm intruding, and, and that's such a complicated feeling because
Yeah, yeah. But at the same time, how could you not just stare the entire, you know what I mean? Like, it's the most human thing to do, to look and look and look and look in that situation.
yeah,
But I get what you're saying. It's like, because also, she doesn't know you're there. So like there's the element of like invading someone's privacy almost, you know? Yeah,
exactly,
yeah, yeah.
exactly, and,
Yeah.
like, so I kept looking and, like, I think there was, like, a couple times where, like, we made eye contact and I
Mhm.
kinda was like like,
Yeah, yeah.
like, "Do you see?"
The eyes, the
Like,
eyes, the
yeah,
eyes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and and, like, nothing.
Mhm.
So the Giants won, so yippee.
Yeah.
And so the game was over, and this was, like, the moment we were all waiting for, and, like, of course, when a game is over, like, everybody's just flooding to
Yeah,
the
Mackenzie better
to the egg.
hustle. She needs to
Yeah.
run. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So luckily Mackenzie is like one of those people, you will ask her to do anything, talk to anyone, and she's like, "No problem."
Good,
Like,
yeah, good friend. Yeah.
yeah, really good friend. And um so she like darts into the crowd and like is waiting for the opportune time when they're coming down.
Mhm.
I'm like heart pounding. I'm hiding, like I'm crouched down because I was
Ah,
like so nervous.
yeah.
And um so I guess, so this is the from what Mackenzie shared with me.
Uh-huh,
She said, so I go up to her and I said, "Are you hi, like, are you Lee?"
uh-huh.
And Lee goes, "Yeah, why were you guys staring at me?"
Oh my god. Yeah, of course. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And she like almost like got like a little Jersey attitude, like,
Well, let me
you
tell
know?
you, Lee, let me
Yeah.
tell you why we were staring, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So she goes, "I'm friends." This is Mackenzie. She goes,
Mhm.
"I'm friends with Heather and Amy." And
Mm.
that's my twin's name. And her
I
face
was gonna say that
went
that must have changed your attitude there. Yeah,
went white.
yeah.
And she like hustles Mackenzie to like the side because her
Mm.
kids were there. She's like, "My
Mhm.
kids are here. My kids are here."
Mhm, mhm.
And Mackenzie gives her the note, and um Lee reads the note, and she looks at Kenzie like with like a look like, "Thank
Mm,
you."
mm.
Like, "Thank you." And then Mackenzie scurries away back to us. And I'm like, "What happened? What happened?" Like,
Yeah.
and she shared that, and like I was so freaked out when Mackenzie had shared, like, she was like, "Why were you staring at me?" I was like, "No, she's," and I remember being like so embarrassed and like, and so it's such a it was such a whirlwind that like on the way home, like all of us we were just like, what
Yeah.
just happened?
Yeah. I mean, your head after that driving home, even going to bed that night, you must have just been spinning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. What is she thinking?
Yeah.
You know, is she mad? Is she
Right.
happy? Is
Right.
she gonna call?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was like the biggest thing. And like then, telling my twin sister about it, I had almost felt bad. I was like, I'm sorry you weren't there,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Um, and so again, like my mom was like so supportive, and we were just, going back over, now it's like hindsight, like, oh my God, the blue eyes, the
Mm.
medium, me
Mhm.
showing the
Yeah.
pictures, the Giants game, like it was just so weird and like wild. So now what do we do? It's like we wait to hear,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
it felt very similar to waiting to hear back from the letters, and I
Mhm.
was almost like, like maybe I was preparing myself for like maybe it wasn't gonna
Yeah.
nothing's gonna
Yeah.
happen, and which is fine,
Yeah.
at least like I was kind of like making like a, how I rationalized it was like I got to see her, and that's really like I really just wanted to know what that was like.
Ah, yeah. Right. Yeah.
Like I like if there was like any adoptees watching, like I'm sure they could relate to this, like
Yeah.
what is it like to see your birth mother
Mm.
and like just see her, like
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's really no different than, well, it's probably different. Like, I think I have more of a connection with my adoptive mother because she's my mom,
Yeah.
you
Yeah. Yeah.
know, like
Totally. Yeah.
she's who I have that connection with. But I think in this like whole story of like, oh, this, you know, fairy godmother, sort of thing, you think like, oh my God, when you see them, like sparks are gonna fly
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
world's gonna explode. But
Yeah.
I didn't really feel that, and that's okay. Like
Yeah.
it was almost like, oh, they're human too. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
Totally.
Um, and so a couple weeks go by, and I was living here at the time at home, and my sister and I were hanging out, my twin, and my mom comes down and she goes, "Guess who I just got off the phone with?"
Wow.
And it was my birth mom. She had called, and it was like so emotional. She
Yeah.
was like, she just kept saying like, "Are they mad at me?"
Oh man. Yeah.
And I was like, "No, I thought she was mad at me."
Of
Like,
course. Of
you
course.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like she was saying, she just kept like kind of apologizing, and like, she was like, I couldn't do it at the time,
Yeah.
like, and just it was just very emotional, and she kept asking like, are they okay?
Mm-hmm.
Are they good? And my mom was able to say like, they're great, like, you know Amy's a social
Mm-hmm.
worker therapist, Heather's a physical therapist, like they both have master's degrees,
Mm-hmm.
like they're healthy, they're happy, and like my mom got to send her pictures of us,
Wow.
and it was just like really cool. And unfortunately we never, to this day, we haven't spoken. Um
And was that like, who was that, someone's decision? Is that just caution on everyone's behalf? Like, why do you, what is the reason for that? Is it all on
uh
her, or
it's
like, how's this?
it balls in, yeah, I think
Okay.
like the ball's in her court, because it's sort of, again, I think oh, she also said her kids don't know.
Oh, I meant to ask that. Okay.
The
Okay.
kids don't know, and that's why she was like worried about, Mackenzie coming up to
That
her and saying,
that's a complicating factor. I could see that being sort of causing trepidation on her part, just because then it's like,
yeah,
do I have to then be full disclosure honest with my own children, that you know what I mean? It's like, what do I do,
yeah,
uh
yeah,
but
like a
yeah.
lot of stuff to unpack, and
Yeah.
like I think she's got a lot of baggage, and it's sort of like the same theme of, we'll write,
Yeah.
and we'll try to reach out, and if she's ready, she's ready, she'll respond. And like
Mhm.
I think, tying it back to the theme of, I'm really glad that my parents have explained the concept, like, of adoption and all that it entails, that, you know, it's out of love, but there's
Yeah.
a lot, underneath that. And there's a lot of pain, and there's a lot of sacrifice. And, just because they're not ready to meet you or, connect, doesn't mean they don't love you still.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Totally.
that's been like the consolation. And like, um, my mom will reach out on our behalf, like every so often, like on holidays and stuff, like, um, hey, like thinking of you.
Mhm.
And each time she responds like in a different way, like one time it'll be like, oh, sorry, it's really busy. And then recently it was like, I think I'm ready to like talk.
Ah.
And so who knows, like maybe soon I'll talk to her on the phone, and
Yeah.
maybe, we'll meet, so it's seeming like it's still a possibility,
Yeah. Yeah.
but at least we're able to even like have these conversations
Yeah.
because of what happened at
Right.
that game, and
Right.
not passing up that opportunity.
Yeah, even though exactly that happening the way it did, there's at the very least an a dimension of clarity now to potential steps moving forward, if that was the choice that was made.
Yeah.
One thing you said
Yeah.
that she asked your mom, which I find interesting, is the first thing she said was something like, "Are they mad at me?" So you have to imagine there's some kind of, even if the answer is no, which it is, and even if it's an emphatic no, which it is, there must be some kind of internalized shame somewhere in that for
For
her, which
sure.
has to be part of it as well, and that makes it extra difficult on top of the already difficult everything about the situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but just so it's clear, you want to meet her. Is that correct?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, after
Yeah.
that, I think I'd like to,
Yeah.
and, I think the only thing that's, like, maybe the hesitation in my voice is just, like,
Of
it's
course.
nerve-wracking,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and but how could you, like, not like, after that, it's
Hmm.
like we've
Yeah.
um, like, that was, like, the universe saying something, and, like, even if we don't meet, I think it's like I had that moment,
Yes. Totally. Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I kinda got my answer, not a full answer, but I kinda that curiosity of, like, what would it be like,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Totally. I mean, let's hope uh, she or someone she knows with knowledge somehow of the situation sees or hears this and sends it her way, because
Oh
maybe
my god,
hearing this
yeah.
story from your mouth would actually push her over the edge. What it sounds like to me is that eventually, slowly but surely, at her own pace, on her own time, she's gonna take that step across the threshold and say, okay, I think I need to meet them now. But
Yeah.
again, understandably, taking her sweet ass time, so to speak, does make sense to me.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah, like, especially if you have 2 kids that don't
Hmm.
know about it,
Yeah.
and,
Totally.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
so, yeah,
Yeah.
there's gotta be a lot of stuff there, so
Yeah.
but again, like, whatever I felt like I was lacking in, birth family, like,
Mm.
I have my twin, I
Hmm.
have my siblings, I have their birth like, I've formed really strong connections with, my siblings' birth mothers.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like, you know, I'm not looking at it like, "Oh, poor me, poor
Yeah.
me." It's like, what a cool life,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
what a
it's,
full life. Yeah.
yes, very interesting. And it's almost like you have all these extra people who love you who
Yeah.
aren't. It's not the case usually. Most people just have their parents and the rest of their family, but you actually have like other sets of parents who are sort of
Yeah.
these
Yeah,
extended
and
guardians.
grandparents.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's cool. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Um wow, that's amazing. Yeah. I'm going to be thinking about this for a while. That's such a crazy, having any kind of intimate moment in a very, 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 very public space is
Yeah.
always such a trip. Anything
Yeah.
even remotely intimate or very specific to you in your life in a sea of, probably 80,000 people, giant stadium,
Mhm.
is that must have been really, really wild to experience. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like an intimate moment, but, like, it's like an intimate moment and in a big space, but, like, I'll always, like, remember that, like, little section of people who
Yeah.
were all
Right, right,
sort
right.
of like, "We're all in this now,"
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Like the security guard, "You are part of, like, one of the
Yeah.
biggest moments of my
Right,
life,"
right,
like,
right.
the person who gave us the pen.
Yeah.
Like
That is kind of a testament to how relatable your situation was in that moment. Like, whether someone's adopted or not, it doesn't take much to get people to understand the significance of that to someone in your situation. So it makes sense that everyone would be like, let's make this happen, because it's so
yeah.
immediate, visceral. People are just like, yeah, yeah, get a pen, get a pen, get a paper, da,
Yeah.
da, da, whatever we need to do to help this total stranger.
Right, right.
Yeah, that's cool. That's very cool.
Mhm.
Well, I
So
hope.
always carry a piece of paper and a pen
Yeah,
with you
always.
at
Yeah,
a Giants game.
especially at NFL games. Exactly.
Yeah.
Um, well, cool. I mean, thank you for sharing this
Thank
story, for wanting
you.
to come on the show. I'm happy we were able to do this, and I believe that you are going to meet your mom in the relatively near future. When that happens, let us know so we can recap.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
definitely. All right. Thank you so much.
One
Yeah.
second, Amy.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. Do you want
Oh
to
my
at
God.
all say anything to her in case she is listening?
Um, I think I would like to say, I love you. I'm not angry with you. Whatever you chose to do or choose to do, I know like it's what's best for you. It's what's best for us. And maybe we'll meet someday. But I'm glad I saw you.
That's a beautiful message. That
Yeah.
is sweet. That was very sweet. Well, thanks, Amy. You're clearly a very genuine, sweet person, and whoever does get a chance to meet you, they're a lucky person.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah, take care. We'll be in touch, and please, obviously, like I said, do let me know if there's any sort of news.
I know. And I have to say, I love the premise of the show.
Oh,
Like
great.
when I first heard about it through
Yeah.
Lifeline and I was like, hell yeah, because as a therapist,
Mm,
like I'm privy to like some amazing, wild
yeah.
stories. And
Yeah.
like you kind of are able to put that on a platform and
Yeah.
like, the privilege I have of hearing people's crazy stories. Now you're like giving out to the world. So keep it up.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, it's interesting. You're a therapist, and I'm obviously not, but having come to this idea for this podcast, I do those private advice sessions, what I talk about on Lifeline. And similarly, through doing that, I was like, why is there not a podcast
Yeah.
where these people who are coming to me for advice are talking about that? Because this is more interesting than anything I'm hearing on any fucking podcast in the world. Like
Yeah.
this is shit people want to hear. I'm positive.
Right.
But yeah, so that it's funny you say that because I felt similarly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
just gotta ask you one thing. So when I heard about the like the private advice session, do you
Yeah.
have to like do a disclaimer like this is not
So
medical advice or like
this
therapy?
is really interesting. So I do a disclaimer, but I've had at this point 5, maybe more therapists come for advice.
Cool.
I was worried that therapists were going to be like, you shouldn't be fucking doing this,
Yeah.
And so, understandably, I was like, maybe I'm
Yeah.
not like supposed to be doing this. But once that happened, I was like, and I asked them, I was like, is this bad that I'm doing this? And they were like,
Mhm.
no, I mean, I'm paying you for advice, so it's fucking good.
Right.
And I was like,
Yeah, that's
wow,
awesome.
therapists coming to me for advice. I don't know. This is crazy. But yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah,
I was curious,
yeah,
but that's so cool.
yeah,
You should maybe look into training
yeah,
like some schools.
maybe. Yeah, maybe. Exactly.
So,
But that's been cool. This has been amazing because I get to hear stories like this. So again,
yeah.
thank you.
All right. Well, all the best.
You too, Amy. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.